everybody, John Yard here from Burley Beaver, and today we're going to be talking about beech trees, and specifically, is beech good firewood? But before we get to that, you might be noticing something about today's video. You might be noticing that it's a little bit darker. It's a little bit harder to see me than it is normally in our other videos, but there's actually a good reason for that. And that is because the beech trees actually tend to grow up in the shade of oak and hickory trees. So for a forest like the one I'm standing in right now, typically the progression of the natural trees that will grow here is a tree like aspen, which grows really quickly, will come up first, and then oaks and hickory will grow up, and then in the shade of the oaks and hickory trees you'll get something like a beech tree and maple trees as well. So that's a little bit why I might be a little harder to see than I normally am in these videos. Yeah, we're going to be talking about these beech trees and looking at how good they are for firewood. And but before we do that, let's talk about identifying it. How do you know you've got a beech tree on your hands? So if you look at it, you might be able to see it a bit, or if you've seen a beech tree yourself walking around, probably the easiest way to tell a beech tree is a beech tree is by the bark. So beech trees have really, really tight bark that's almost skin-like. And if you've ever seen, walking through the woods, if you've ever seen a tree that has like carvings in it, like sometimes people will make heart carvings in tree trunks, a lot of times people are doing that in beech trees because it's so flat and smooth and easy to carve. Of course, don't do that to your trees because that can open them up to all kinds of problems and can ultimately kill the tree. So don't go carving in beech trees. That's not a good thing to do. But that's one way that you can tell a beech tree is just by the bark and how smooth it is and how easy it looks like it could be to carve in, we'll say. And another thing that you can use to help identify beech trees are the leaves. So you might be able to notice around me a little bit, a lot of the trees, it's December now, it's the middle of winter, and I've got snow around me, and a lot of the other trees you don't see any leaves on. But interestingly, beech trees, even though they're deciduous and the trees do die every year, beech trees, the leaves, even though they're dead, cling onto the branches. So if you're looking through the woods and you see you've got some branches that still have leaves on it throughout the winter, that's probably going to be a beech tree, or at least there's a good chance that it's a beech tree. And then one other thing about the branches that can help you identify them is on the end, the buds are kind of sharp. So the buds on the branches, you probably can't see it very well in the video, but they're very pointy, almost sharp on the tip. So that's another thing that you can look for to help you identify them. So that's how you can tell you're dealing with a beech tree. But now let's get to the firewood stuff. So a couple things, we'll go through some pros and cons about beech, but let me just first say beech is actually a really good firewood. And so some of the good qualities of it, some of the pros are, number one, it has a very high heat output. So you're looking at, for a cord of beech, you're looking at around 27 BTUs per cord, probably. I think the rating I had in some data that I looked at was about 27.5 BTUs per cord, which puts it very close to the upper tier of the best firewoods that you can burn. So it puts it pretty close to hickory, which I think is just a little bit above for heat output, close to hickory, black locust, some of these other great hardwoods that burn really hot. And so it has high heat output, and also it is a hardwood, and the wood tends to be fairly dense, and it has really good coaling properties, which basically means, if you burn it, it's going to burn for a long time, going to continue putting out heat for a long time while the wood's burning. So that's another great thing. Also, the smell. It has quite a nice smell, which is something that people are sometimes interested in when they're looking at firewood. And beech is actually used for making barrels for some, like beer companies, for example, use them for making barrels because of the flavor, and flavor is often really closely associated with smell, as you probably know. So it's not quite as good as oak in that regard. There's some other woods that have better smells, better fragrances, but beech is good. It's a nice one. Some of the downsides for beech is, first of all, it's pretty tough to split. Maybe you're an expert splitter and you can get through it, but compared to other wood, like ash, for example, is really easy to split. Beech is going to be harder than that. And another downside is it's hard to find a beech tree that isn't hollow in the trunk. So if you look at a tree like this, you might think, oh, there's probably a lot of firewood in there. Well, there is. You can get like the branches, and there definitely is good firewood in there, but it's probably not as much as it looks like because the tree itself will be hollow most of the time. So that's something to keep in mind about beech trees as well. And I think that pretty well covers the main things. I guess I'll mention sparking as well. Some types of firewood like mulberry are well known to have a lot of sparks coming off of it when you burn it, but you don't really have that problem so much with beech. So that pretty much covers the firewood aspects, and yeah, I think is a pretty good summary for beech trees. So hope you've enjoyed this video, and we'll catch you back here next time. Cheers.